So I gave a speech last year about why tests were more harmful than helpful. And ironically, 5 days later, I had a seizure and had to be rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. And after I got millions of tests and brain scans, they said it had been caused by severe anxiety and sleep deprivation over a long period of time. Apparently, in the ambulance, I responded, half consciously keep in mind, while I'm in the IV, that checks out. The irony that I made a speech about how tests only make students unwell and that tests are detrimental to their mental and physical well being, and then almost died by hitting my head on a cobblestone from a seizure, is almost comical. Last June, I talked about how in fifth grade I looked forward to the creative and hands on learning. As a 10-year-old, I got to dissect owl pellets and ask really in depth questions like why was the sky blue? Or why do colors change in the fall? Deep level thinking. But the point was is I woke up every morning really genuinely looking forward to school. But then came sixth grade and things were different. I was nauseous every morning, thinking about grades, assignments, and new responsibilities. I was told countless times that the stress would pass, I just had to get used to studying and managing my work. But I never did. I had panic attacks every night, bawling because I thought grades were what determined me as a person and what made up my characteristics. However, while I was throwing up, because of how stressed I was, as an 11-year-old, keep in mind, I kept questioning why I had tests. I mean, sure, I would sit down and study the information, but the day after the test, anything I had retained would leave because I would be so focused on my next upcoming assignments. I realized it doesn't matter how well prepared someone is or how well they know the content on an exam. They can still fail, whether it be to learning disabilities, mental health, even lack of sleep. I began thinking that tests only measured my ability to study well and hard, my ability to sit down at a desk for 8 hours and stay focused, which is ironic as someone with ADHD, and all just to get that 7 on the piece of paper when it was handed back to me. 5 years later, and that pressure is still all encompassing. I study just to forget the information the next day. I study only for the grade, not for my genuine learning. So, what differentiated my 10-year-old self and my now 17-year-old self? It was my interest in my learning. When I was 10, I worked hard and was happy because I was genuinely interested without the anxiety of tests clouding these interests. Now, any passion I had towards a subject has basically been stolen due to the pressure that's put on performing well. With COVID came many challenges. I think that would be the understatement of the year. However, it also presented opportunities and opened a lot of doors for learning. With COVID and people not being able to sit down and take exams, project-based learning and investigations were introduced. With these projects, students could choose a topic within the subject and syllabus at hand, and were given enough time to complete these assignments. A study showed that both the mental health and the grades achieved were much higher. So, in relation to me, I'm in the IB, and we have what are called IAs, or internal assessments. And with these explorations, we're free to delve into any topic within a subject at hand, but on a very deep level. And in my personal experience, because I got to choose my area of exploration, I found myself getting genuinely excited to work on my IAs. So I found them, it provoked a sense of interest that I hadn't had in a long time. Instead of stressing and cramming information into my head that, frankly, I couldn't have cared less about, I was researching and investigating and doing things that made me excited to learn again. This exemplifies how creative learning is so much more beneficial, both for the learning that comes as a result of project-based learning, but also for the general well-being of students. Also, if you think of, also if you think of how we're going to be when we graduate, I'm not going to be sitting in a room with my colleagues with 2 meters separation between my desks and an artificial light, having to regurgitate information where I can't collaborate and problem solve with my peers. So why are we doing it? I'd like to conclude with this fact. A study conducted by the American Psychological Association found that the average high schooler now has the same level of anxiety as a high-risk 1960s psychiatric patient. And for what? If we don't take action, who's to say how much worse the well-being of students will be? How many more will end up in hospitals, suffering from depression, crippling anxiety, even seizures? We need to change the system, and for the better. Thank you.